the Oxford Apartments on North 25th Street in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It seemed like any other low-rise building in a working-class neighborhood. On the outside, there was nothing to suggest. Apartment 213 was a chamber of horrors, a place where unspeakable acts were being committed with chilling regularity. Its resident, Jeffrey Dahmer, presented a facade of nondescript normalcy. He was a quiet man, a loner, who worked at a chocolate factory. To his neighbors, he was perhaps a bit odd, maybe even strange, but certainly not a monster. This quiet, unassuming exterior was his most effective weapon, a cloak of invisibility that allowed him to move through the world, hunting his victims in plain sight while the city slept, completely unaware of the evil festering in its midst. For years, this deception worked flawlessly. Dahmer's method was terrifyingly simple. He would frequent gay bars, bus stations, shopping malls, seeking out young men. The catalyst for Jeffrey Dahmer's downfall was a 32-year-old man named Tracy Edwards. On that fateful July night, Edwards met Dahmer at a bar. He agreed to go back to his apartment, expecting a consensual encounter. He was promised money for posing for some photographs. Once inside apartment 213, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The friendly demeanor Dahmer had projected vanished, replaced by a cold, menacing control. Dahmer snapped a handcuff onto one of Edwards' wrists. He brandished a large butcher knife and informed him that he intended to eat his heart. The casual invitation had turned into a terrifying trap. Edwards realized with dawning horror that he was not going to be allowed to leave. For several harrowing hours, Edwards was a prisoner in Dahmer's lair. He was forced to endure his captor's bizarre and threatening behavior while trying to maintain a calm facade and look for any opportunity to escape. He saw the large blue drum in the corner. He saw the vats of acid. He smelled the overwhelming putrid stench Dahmer dismissed as bad plumbing. Edwards played along, feigning compliance. He engaged Dahmer in conversation, all the while knowing his life hung by a thread. He understood that if he showed fear or resisted, he could meet the same fate as the men whose pictures were scattered around the room. The moment of truth came when Dahmer's attention was momentarily diverted. As Dahmer moved to secure the second handcuff, Edwards saw his chance. In a surge of adrenaline-fueled courage, he struck Dahmer and made a frantic dash for the unlocked apartment door. Out on the street, disoriented and panicked, Tracy Edwards flagged down the first sign of authority he could find: a police patrol car. He poured out his story to the two officers, Robert Routh and Rolf Mueller, telling them about the freak who had handcuffed him, pulled a knife on him, and threatened to kill him. His terror was palpable. The dangling handcuff was undeniable proof that something was terribly wrong. This desperate plea for help was the crucial first step that would lead law enforcement to Jeffrey Dahmer's front door and bring an end to his murderous spree. When Officer Robert Routh and Officer Rolf Mueller encountered Tracy Edwards on the street, they were met with chaos and fear. Edwards was agitated, speaking rapidly, pointing back toward the Oxford Apartments, insisting a man inside had tried to kill him. Accustomed to domestic disputes and late-night altercations, the officers listened. They saw the handcuff dangling from his wrist and agreed to investigate. They accompanied Edwards back to the apartment building, a standard procedure with monumental consequences, then told him to wait downstairs while they went up to apartment 213. They knocked, and the door was answered by a calm, compliant Jeffrey Dahmer, shirtless, polite, cooperative, saying it was a misunderstanding between two men who had been drinking. He admitted handcuffing Edwards but called it a consensual act gone awry. Dahmer's placid demeanor versus Edwards's frantic panic left the officers confused. At this juncture, the officers made a decision that would be scrutinized for years. Believing they needed the key, they followed Dahmer back into the room. Crossing the threshold was the turning point. Had they left, the horrors would have stayed hidden and Edwards dismissed as unreliable. But stepping inside, they entered the killer's inner sanctum. Their routine duty was about to collide with unimaginable horror. This moment echoes a painful what-if. In May 1991, officers returned a dazed and naked 14-year-old Conorak Synthasm phone to Dahmer after he claimed the boy was his drunk 19-year-old lover. Those officers accepted Dahmer's explanation and left, and the boy was murdered shortly after. This time, different procedural choices would lead to a different outcome. The routine decision to enter for a key would tear down Dahmer's wall of deception. As the officers stepped into apartment 213, their senses were immediately assaulted. The first thing that hit them was the smell, an overpowering foul stench of decay, of chemicals that permeated every corner of the small room. It was a smell that could not be explained away by bad plumbing or spoiled food. It was the smell of death. While Dahmer moved toward his bedroom to supposedly get the handcuff key, Officer Mueller's gaze wandered around the living room. His eyes landed on an open nightstand drawer. Protruding were a series of shocking Polaroid photographs depicting human bodies in various states of dismemberment and grotesque poses. The discovery was instantaneous and horrifying. Officer Mueller picked up the photos, his disbelief turning to shock as he realized what he was looking at. These were not props or morbid jokes. They were graphic records of actual murders.
This is for real.
In that single moment, the entire situation transformed. This was no longer a simple domestic dispute. They were standing in the den of a serial killer, surrounded by the evidence of his atrocities. The calm, cooperative man who had answered the door was revealed to be a monster. Their training immediately kicked in. As Dahmer returned from the bedroom without the key, Officer Routh engaged him, keeping him distracted, while Officer Mueller subtly signaled that they were in grave danger. A struggle ensued. Dahmer, realizing his world was collapsing, resisted arrest, but the two officers were able to overpower and subdue him. They successfully placed him in handcuffs. This time, police-issued ones. The man who had used restraints to control and murder his victims was now restrained himself, his reign of terror brought to an abrupt and violent end on the floor of his own foul-smelling apartment. The courage and quick thinking of the officers in that moment cannot be overstated. Faced with evidence of horrors beyond what most people could ever imagine, they did not freeze. They did not retreat. They acted decisively to neutralize the threat and secure the scene. They radioed for backup, and soon the quiet apartment building was swarming with police. Tracy Edwards, who had been waiting anxiously downstairs, was finally safe, his terrifying ordeal vindicated. His persistence, the officers' decision to step inside, and their subsequent professional conduct had finally brought the Butcher of Milwaukee to justice. The door to apartment 213 was now a gateway to a massive and gruesome investigation. With Jeffrey Dahmer in custody, detectives began processing apartment 213. Forensic specialists joined the team. What they discovered was like a museum of the macabre. The full extent of Dahmer's depravity was laid bare. The Polaroid photographs that alerted officers were just the beginning. A deeper search revealed extensive human remains. It would take days to catalog. This was more than a single crime scene. It showed repeated, systematic killings. In the kitchen, an investigator opened the refrigerator and found human remains on a lower shelf. The freezer held additional remains and a bag with biological material. A blue 57-gallon drum contained human remains in a chemical solution. Skeletal remains, some altered, were found in a closet. Skeletal remains were also found in a filing cabinet. Boxes throughout the apartment held other remains. Pans and containers held preserved material. Saws were found scattered around. Knives were collected as evidence. A hypodermic needle was recovered. A large chemical container labeled hydrochloric acid was found. The Polaroids served as records and trophies. He had documented the process from initial drugging to the eventual disposal of remains. The volume and clinical nature suggested a long-running methodical pattern. Apartment 213 became a symbol of pure evil. The days and weeks following Jeffrey Dahmer's arrest were a whirlwind of intense police work and media frenzy. As the public learned the gruesome details of what was found inside apartment 213, a wave of shock and revulsion swept across the nation and the world. For the Milwaukee Police Department, the focus was on the monumental task of identifying the victims and piecing together the full timeline of Dahmer's crimes, stretching back to his first killing in Ohio in 1978. The investigation had to be meticulous, compassionate, painfully thorough. Forensic anthropologists and medical examiners faced the daunting challenge of identifying fragmented and decomposed remains, using skeletal fragments, dental records, DNA analysis, and other available means to give names back to nameless victims. The Polaroid pictures, while horrific, became a crucial tool, providing visual records to match with missing persons reports. Families who had spent months or years searching for their missing sons and brothers were now faced with devastating confirmation. Each identification was a new tragedy, a fresh wave of grief for a community already reeling. Dahmer himself proved to be a disturbingly cooperative source of information. During lengthy, chilling interrogations, he calmly, matter-of-factly recounted his crimes in exhaustive detail, how he met his victims, what he did to them, his twisted motivations. These confessions helped investigators link him to 17 murders. The investigation forced a painful reckoning within the Milwaukee Police Department and the city. The case of Konarak Synthosamphone became a focal point of public outrage and scrutiny, raising questions about police negligence, racial bias, and homophobia, as many victims were men of color and from the gay community. The incident highlighted systemic failures and missed opportunities that allowed a monster to continue killing. The aftermath was not just about justice, but demanding accountability and change to prevent this happening again. The capture of Jeffrey Dahmer was not the result of a single heroic act, but rather a fragile chain of events forged by desperation, persistence, procedural diligence. It began with the primal instinct of Tracy Edwards. His courageous escape set everything in motion. His refusal to be silenced, even when his story seemed too incredible to believe, was the essential first link. That chain was then held by officers Routh and Mueller. Their decision to cross the threshold of apartment 213, a step other officers had failed to take, became the pivotal moment that unraveled Dahmer's secret world. It was a confluence of right actions at the right time that finally brought the long, silent nightmare to an end. The case reminds us of the evil that can hide in plain sight. Dahmer was not a caricature of a monster, a quiet neighbor, a co-worker, a seemingly harmless man in a bar. His ability to operate for so long exposes a profound societal vulnerability, who we notice, who we ignore. Ultimately, justice was delivered. Jeffrey Dahmer was tried and convicted, sentenced to life in prison, a sentence cut short when he was killed by a fellow inmate in 1994. But legal justice can never erase the pain. Their memories live on, and the hard lessons led to reviews of police procedure and a greater awareness to take every report of violence seriously, regardless of who is involved.